The tempest came without warning. Fierce winds tore across the barren planet, hurling sharp stones and sheets of acidic rain that hissed when they struck the rocky ground. Lyra, a young explorer from a distant star system, struggled to stay upright. Her ship, a small scout vessel, had been caught in the storm hours ago, forcing her to abandon it in search of shelter. The landscape was harsh and unwelcoming, jagged cliffs rising like frozen waves against the sky. Her body was weary, her legs aching from running through mud and jagged stones. Every instinct screamed that she needed shelter, or she would not survive the night. She pushed forward, eyes narrowed against the driving rain. Then, through the blur of storm, she saw it. A small structure, sturdy and square, nestled between two cliffs. Its walls were reinforced with metal and stone, clearly designed to withstand the worst the planet could throw at it. Lyra felt hope spark within her chest, but it was tempered with caution. She had been on worlds where shelter often came with a price. Hostile creatures, traps, or even hostile beings. She crept forward, every muscle tense, ready to defend herself if needed. When she reached the door, she froze. Inside, there was a human. He was tending a small fire, the glow of it casting flickering shadows on the walls. His hair was dark and slightly damp from the storm, his clothes simple but practical. He did not rise when she entered. Instead, he studied her calmly, as if he had expected her. Lyra's mind raced. Most humans she had encountered were either curious to the point of recklessness or hostile, quick to attack strangers. This one was different. She began, then stopped. Words felt inadequate. She did not know the proper greeting, the proper way to show she meant no harm. The human smiled faintly. "You need warmth," he said simply, gesturing to the fire. "Come in." Lyra hesitated. Trust did not come easily. She had survived on countless dangerous planets by relying on her instincts, but there was something in his calm tone, the steady way he held himself, that made her pause. She stepped inside, letting the door close behind her. The warmth from the fire was immediate and soothing. Lyra's body, chilled and wet from the storm, relaxed slightly. She noticed the careful organization of the shelter, supplies neatly stacked, tools arranged for easy access, and even a small area for growing basic food. Whoever this human was, he clearly knew how to survive in hostile conditions. "I'm Lyra," she said finally, forcing her voice steady. My ship was destroyed. I had no choice but to find shelter." The human nodded. "I'm Caleb," he replied. "You're lucky you found this place. The storm out there can kill a person in hours." Lyra studied him. His eyes were calm, but they seemed to miss nothing. The way she moved, the tension in her shoulders, even the small scratches the storm had left on her armor. She realized he was assessing her, just as she had been assessing him. And yet there was no hostility in his gaze, only a quiet strength. "I didn't expect a human here," she admitted. Caleb raised an eyebrow, a faint smile on his lips. "Most people don't survive long out there alone. Humans are rare in this region. You're not the first alien to be surprised by one of us, though." Lyra felt a flicker of amusement despite herself. His words were simple, but there was confidence behind them. A confidence that came from experience. I did not think humans could be this capable," she said carefully. Caleb chuckled softly. "Most aren't, but some of us can handle more than we look like we can. You'll find that out if the storm doesn't get you first." For a moment, they were silent, listening to the howl of the wind and the hiss of rain outside. Lyra realized that despite the alien world and the storm, there was something grounding about the human's presence. He seemed part of this harsh landscape in a way that she was not. "Do you often survive storms like this?" she asked, curiosity overcoming her caution. Caleb shook his head. No storm is the same. You adapt, you use what you have, and you keep moving. That's all you can do. And sometimes you find others who help you survive. Like now. Lyra blinked at him. There was no arrogance in his words, only practicality. She realized that survival here was not about strength alone. It was about intelligence, observation, and courage. I can help, she said after a pause, her pride making her speak. I have technology, tools, devices. I can repair or improve your systems if you allow it. Caleb studied her for a long moment. Then, with a small nod, he gestured toward a corner of the shelter where some damaged equipment lay. All right, let's see what you can do. As Lyra began working, she noticed Caleb watching her, not interrupting, not hovering. There was a quiet respect in the way he gave her space to operate. For someone who had been alone in this wilderness for who knows how long, it was unusual. Hours passed. The storm outside did not lessen, but inside the shelter, a rhythm developed. Lyra fixed and improved several systems, while Caleb tended the fire, purifying water and preparing simple meals. Neither spoke much beyond necessary instructions and occasional observations, but there was a growing understanding between them. At one point, Lyra paused and looked at Caleb. You make this look easy, she said. He smiled faintly. It's not easy. You just get used to doing things that others might think impossible. It's the only way to survive here. Lyra nodded. There was truth in his words. On her own planet, she had always relied on skill and planning. But she had never encountered someone like Caleb, someone who made survival seem like second nature. The night stretched on. Outside, the storm showed no sign of stopping, battering the cliffs and shaking the shelter. Inside, the fire flickered, casting shadows across their faces. Lyra found herself noticing the details, the careful way Caleb arranged his supplies, the steadiness in his hands as he worked, the quiet confidence that seemed to radiate from him. For the first time, she felt something unfamiliar. Trust. Not complete trust, not yet, but the beginnings of it. And with that trust came a small, cautious hope. I never thought I'd find a human like you here, she admitted softly, almost to herself. Caleb glanced at her. You'll find humans capable of more than you expect if you look closely, he said. The storm howled louder, as if to challenge them. Yet inside the small shelter, Lyra realized that perhaps the greatest challenge was not the tempest outside, but learning to rely on another being, learning to see the potential in someone so different from herself. She leaned against the wall, exhausted, but grateful. For the first time since the storm began, she allowed herself to relax, even just a little. She did not know what tomorrow would bring, whether the storm would end, whether more dangers awaited. But for now, she was safe, and that was enough. As she drifted into a restless sleep, she could hear Caleb moving quietly around the shelter, tending to the fire and checking the barriers. He did not speak, and he did not need to. His presence was enough. Lyra realized, as the first hints of dawn light filtered through the small windows, that meeting this human had changed something within her. The storm outside had brought them together, but survival and companionship, something she had rarely experienced in her travels, had started to form a bond between them. And as the wind roared and the rain pelted the shelter, Lyra knew one thing for certain. Humans were far more remarkable than she had ever imagined. The storm continued its relentless assault on the cliffs outside, but inside the shelter, there was a strange calm. Lyra awoke to the sound of Caleb moving quietly, checking the reinforced doors and scanning the horizon through a small observation panel. The wind howled like a living creature, rattling the shelter, but Caleb's presence made her feel safer than she had felt in days. I didn't sleep well, Lyra admitted, rubbing her eyes. Caleb glanced at her, his expression calm. You'll get used to it. Storms like this don't make exceptions. You adapt, or you don't survive. Lyra studied him for a moment. She realized something she hadn't expected. The human was not just surviving, he was thriving in this environment. Every movement was precise, every action deliberate. There was a sharp intelligence behind his calm demeanor, an ability to anticipate danger she found remarkable. I want to help, she said, standing and moving toward the corner where her tools were arranged. If we're going to survive this storm, we need to make the shelter stronger and repair what the Tempest has damaged. Caleb nodded. Good idea. Let's start with the outer panels. Some of them are loose. The wind can tear them off if we don't reinforce them. Working side by side, Lyra and Caleb reinforced the shelter. She marveled at how naturally he moved, how quickly he adapted to the changing environment. He didn't need instructions. He instinctively knew what needed to be done. She had expected humans to be fragile, to panic in extreme conditions. But Caleb was nothing like that. He was a survivor, in the truest sense. As they worked, Lyra told him about the storm, about her ship, and the strange, isolated terrain she had been exploring. Caleb listened intently, occasionally offering a suggestion or showing her a better way to secure the shelter. There was a rhythm to their cooperation, an unspoken understanding that grew stronger with every shared task. Hours passed, and the storm showed no sign of slowing. Then came the first real danger. A low, guttural sound echoed from outside the shelter, followed by heavy thuds against the walls. Lyra froze, recognizing the sound immediately. Predators, drawn by the scent of life. These were creatures native to the planet, enormous and powerful, with armored hides and sharp claws capable of tearing through rock. Caleb did not panic. Instead, he moved quickly to a control panel, activating a series of defensive barriers he had constructed around the shelter. "Stay behind me," he said calmly. "They can't break through these, but they'll test them." Lyra watched in awe as the creatures pounded against the reinforced walls. Sparks flew, metal bent under the force, but the shelter held. Caleb's quick thinking and preparation turned the tide. Even the predators hesitated when they realized their attacks were futile. "You're incredible," Lyra said, her voice a mix of admiration and disbelief. "I've never seen anyone respond like this." Caleb shook his head. "It's not about being incredible. It's about knowing the environment and respecting it. These creatures aren't evil. They're just trying to survive, like us. You adapt, or you fail." Lyra nodded slowly. There was wisdom in his words, a perspective she had rarely encountered among humans. Most species she had met underestimated the planet's dangers, or relied solely on technology, but Caleb combined knowledge, instinct, and courage seamlessly. The creatures eventually retreated, frustrated and wary. The storm continued, but the immediate threat was gone. Lyra and Caleb worked to repair minor damages, reinforcing weak points and securing supplies. The shelter, once a simple refuge, now resembled a fortress, capable of withstanding even the fiercest tempests. By evening, the storm had reached its peak. The wind rattled the shelter violently, but inside, Lyra and Caleb had found a strange comfort in their shared efforts. They cooked a simple meal together, exchanging stories about their lives and the worlds they had seen. Lyra shared tales of distant stars and alien civilizations, while Caleb spoke of human ingenuity and the remarkable ability of his species to adapt, survive, and innovate. "I used to think humans were fragile," Lyra admitted softly, staring into the fire. "But you're different. You think clearly, act decisively, and never give up. I've underestimated your species." Caleb smiled faintly. "Most people do. But humans can surprise you when you least expect it. Some of us are built to endure more than anyone thinks." Lyra felt a warmth beyond the fire, a growing respect, even admiration. There was something in the human spirit, a combination of courage and ingenuity that she had rarely encountered. She realized that surviving the storm was only part of the lesson. Understanding humans, truly understanding them, was even more extraordinary. Suddenly, the shelter shook violently. A massive branch, torn loose by the storm, struck the outer wall. Lyra instinctively ducked, but Caleb reacted instantly, pressing a series of buttons that deployed additional supports. The wall groaned under the impact, but held firm. "You're fast," Lyra said, her voice tinged with awe. No one else could have reacted like that. Caleb shrugged. "Experience, and paying attention. You can't survive alone if you don't notice everything around you." Night fell, but the storm raged on. Lyra and Caleb took turns resting, each keeping a vigilant eye on the walls. The bond between them grew, formed through shared danger, cooperation, and mutual respect. Every successful repair, every threat they repelled, reinforced a realization. Together, they were stronger than the storm, or any creature the planet could send. As dawn approached, the storm began to abate. The winds weakened, the rain slowed, and the distant horizon revealed the jagged terrain scarred by the tempest. Lyra stepped outside for the first time in hours, breathing deeply, feeling the fresh air against her face. Caleb joined her, standing silently beside her. Together they surveyed the landscape. The storm had left a harsh, battered world behind, but it had also revealed something remarkable: their ability to endure, adapt, and survive. "You handled yourself well," Lyra said, breaking the silence. "Better than I expected." Caleb shook his head. "I just do what's necessary. You did the same. Without your skills, we wouldn't have made it through the worst of it." Lyra smiled faintly. For the first time, she felt a connection to a human that went beyond survival or convenience. There was understanding, respect, and perhaps the beginnings of trust. She realized that the storm, which had initially seemed like a threat, had been a catalyst, bringing two unlikely allies together in a world that demanded resilience. As they returned to the shelter to rest and plan their next steps, Lyra made a quiet vow. She would learn from this human, observe him, and understand what made his species capable of such endurance. Perhaps in the process, she would discover something about herself as well, a strength she had not known she possessed. Inside the shelter, the fire burned steadily. Outside, the planet began to calm, its rage spent for the moment. And within that small space, two beings from vastly different worlds had formed a bond forged in storm, survival, and the quiet admiration of one for the other. Lyra looked at Caleb once more, a mix of gratitude and awe in her eyes. She knew that the Tempest had changed everything, not just the landscape, but her perception of humans, and perhaps the beginning of a partnership that could face any challenge. The sun rose slowly over the cliffs, casting light on the battered terrain. The storm was over, but the journey was far from finished. Together, Lyra and Caleb would explore this harsh world, face unknown dangers, and discover the remarkable strength that humanity could offer. And Lyra knew, deep in her heart, that this human, so ordinary yet so extraordinary, was a living testament to the resilience, ingenuity, and courage of a species often underestimated across the galaxy. For the first time since the storm began, she felt hope. Not just for survival, but for what they could achieve together. The Tempest had forced them together, but it was the human spirit, calm, clever, and unyielding, that would guide them through whatever came next. The storm had passed, but the planet was far from calm. Debris from fallen cliffs littered the terrain, and strange, howling creatures roamed the scarred valleys. Lyra and Caleb stood outside the shelter, surveying the aftermath. The air was sharp and clean after the rain, but danger still lingered in every shadow. "We need to move," Caleb said, his eyes scanning the horizon. "Supplies won't last forever, and this area isn't safe long-term. Storms like that can return, and the predators will be more cautious now. But they won't forget us." Lyra nodded. She felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. For the first time, survival was not just about escaping the immediate threat. It was about exploring a hostile world with a capable partner. She glanced at Caleb, noting how naturally he adapted to this environment. Every step he took, every glance he gave, seemed perfectly calculated for safety and efficiency. Humans, she realized again, were far more resourceful than most alien civilizations credited them for. They packed the shelter's remaining supplies carefully, making sure to leave no traces for wandering predators. Caleb taught Lyra the small tricks of human survival, how to read subtle signs in the environment, how to find safe paths through dangerous terrain, and how to use basic tools to create barriers against both the elements and wildlife. Lyra was amazed at his practical ingenuity. "You've survived here alone for how long?" she asked, genuinely curious. "Long enough to learn," Caleb said with a faint smile. "The planet teaches you quickly if you listen. Most humans wouldn't last a day without learning fast. I've adapted, and so have you, though you're catching on remarkably well." Lyra felt a spark of pride. Despite the storm and the harsh environment, she had kept pace with Caleb, contributing her alien technology and skills while learning from his human perspective. Together, they had repaired the shelter, repelled predators, and now prepared to move deeper into the wilderness. As they began their journey, the terrain tested them immediately. Jagged cliffs forced them to climb carefully, while sudden pools of acidic water required careful navigation. Lyra used her equipment to scan for safe paths, but Caleb's intuition often proved faster. He noticed subtle signs, broken branches, faint tracks, slight changes in soil, that told him where to step, where to avoid, and which direction would be safest. "You really pay attention to everything," Lyra said, impressed. Caleb shrugged. "You have to. One mistake here, and you don't get a second chance. It's not luck. It's awareness and preparation." Hours passed. The sun rose higher, and the temperature shifted rapidly. During a short rest, Lyra observed Caleb more closely. His hands, strong and steady, moved naturally when adjusting equipment or clearing obstacles. His eyes, alert and focused, missed nothing. Lyra realized that survival was not just about skill, it was about mindset, determination, and courage. "You make it look easy," she admitted. "But I can see how much effort you put into thinking ahead, watching everything, and staying alert. Most humans I've met don't survive long in environments like this." Caleb looked at her, his expression serious but calm. "Most humans don't have to, but some of us, those who endure, have to learn fast. It's not easy, but it becomes part of you." Lyra nodded, feeling a deep respect for this human. She had faced countless dangers in her travels across the stars, but Caleb was different. He combined ingenuity, courage, and determination in a way that made her realize humans were underestimated across the galaxy. As they approached a narrow canyon, the ground shook violently. A herd of massive alien beasts, disturbed by the storm's destruction, thundered past them. Lyra's instincts screamed to react, to take cover, but Caleb remained calm, stepping confidently to the side and guiding her to safety. "Follow my lead," he said. "They're faster than us, but predictable if you stay alert." They moved carefully, timing each step with the creature's movements, until they reached safety on higher ground. Lyra's heart raced, but she could not help feeling a surge of admiration. Caleb's ability to assess danger and act decisively had saved them once again. "You didn't panic," Lyra said, still catching her breath. Caleb shook his head. "Panic doesn't help. You observe, you plan, and you act. That's how you survive here." Lyra realized that human resilience was not just physical. It was mental, emotional, and adaptive. Caleb's calm confidence, his ability to assess danger and act decisively, made her question everything she had believed about humans. As evening approached, they reached a plateau overlooking a wide valley. The sight was breathtaking, the remnants of the storm scattered across the terrain, sunlight glinting on jagged rocks and shallow pools. It was beautiful, but Lyra knew beauty here could be deadly. The valley held unknown dangers, and the creatures were still roaming. "We'll camp here for the night," Caleb said. "Safe enough for now, and we have water and shelter from the wind." Lyra nodded, helping him set up a temporary camp. They worked in silence, comfortable with each other's presence. The shared experiences, the dangers survived, and the quiet cooperation had built a trust neither had expected. As they ate a simple meal of purified water and nutrient rations, Lyra spoke. "I never thought humans could be so capable. Not just surviving, but adapting, thinking ahead, staying calm under pressure. You've taught me something important." Caleb looked at her, curious. "What's that?" "That humans are more than I expected," Lyra said. "You combine intelligence, courage, and determination in ways that many species don't. I've underestimated your kind." Caleb smiled faintly. "Most do, but those of us who endure, we prove otherwise." Night fell, and the stars shone brightly over the plateau. Lyra and Caleb sat quietly, watching the sky. She felt a deep sense of gratitude, not just for surviving the storm, but for finding a companion who embodied the strength and resilience of humanity. "You've changed how I see humans," she admitted softly. "I used to think most of your species was fragile, limited, but you've shown me something else entirely." Caleb glanced at her, a mixture of humility and pride in his eyes. "Some of us are, and some of us endure because we have to. You've endured too in your own way. That's why we work well together." Lyra smiled faintly. There was truth in his words. They had survived a tempest that could have killed them both, fought off predators, and navigated a world designed to challenge every step. And through it all, their partnership had grown stronger, not just from necessity, but from understanding and respect. As they prepared to rest, Lyra reflected on the journey so far. The storm had forced her to rely on a human, but it had also taught her something deeper. Humans were capable of greatness, often hidden beneath ordinary appearances. Caleb was proof of that, strong, clever, courageous, and unyielding in the face of danger. The night passed quietly, and when dawn arrived, the valley was calm. Birds and small creatures emerged cautiously from the remnants of the storm, and the air was filled with the scent of wet earth and new beginnings. Lyra and Caleb packed their camp, ready to continue exploring the planet together. "You've taught me much about survival," Lyra said as they began walking toward the distant cliffs. "But you've also taught me about humans, their courage, their ingenuity, and their spirit. I'll carry that lesson wherever I go." Caleb glanced at her, a faint smile on his face. "And you've shown me that other species can adapt and endure just as well. Together we're stronger. That's what matters." As they walked side by side, the landscape stretched endlessly before them, a harsh, beautiful, and dangerous world. But Lyra no longer felt fear or doubt. With Caleb by her side, she felt capable of facing anything. The storm had tested them, but it had also revealed something extraordinary. The human spirit, resilient and unyielding, could thrive even in the most hostile environments. And in witnessing it firsthand, Lyra knew that humanity's strength was not in technology alone, or in numbers, or even in weapons. It was in courage, adaptability, and the unbreakable will to endure. The valley ahead promised new challenges, but Lyra felt a sense of anticipation rather than fear. She and Caleb were a team, bound by survival, respect, and an unspoken admiration for each other. The lessons of the Tempest, the dangers faced, the creatures confronted, and the obstacles overcome would guide them forward. Together they moved into the unknown, ready to explore, to endure, and to prove that humans were capable of greatness in ways the galaxy had yet to fully understand. And Lyra, once skeptical of her unlikely companion, now understood something profound. In Caleb, she had found not just a survivor, but a living example of humanity's true potential. Whatever lay ahead, storms, creatures, or unknown perils, they would face it together. And in doing so, Lyra knew that the human she had met in a small, storm-beaten shelter would forever change her perception of life. Resilience, and the extraordinary power of the human spirit. The aftermath of the Tempest left the landscape scarred but alive. Pools of rainwater reflected the harsh sunlight, while jagged rocks cast long shadows across the valley. Lyra and Caleb moved carefully through the terrain, each step deliberate, scanning for both danger and opportunity. The storm had passed, but the planet remained unpredictable, its wildlife restless after the upheaval. "Stay alert," Caleb said, his eyes constantly moving, scanning the horizon. "The storm may be gone, but predators and other dangers adapt quickly. Nothing here stays quiet for long." Lyra nodded, adjusting her gear and scanning with her portable sensors. "I've never seen a planet recover so fast after such destruction. It's alive in a way that feels dangerous and beautiful at the same time." Caleb smiled faintly. "That's the thing about harsh worlds. They test everything. Life finds a way, but it makes you earn every step." As they ventured deeper into the valley, strange alien flora began to appear. Tall, slender plants with translucent leaves that shimmered under the sunlight. They seemed harmless, but Caleb warned her to be cautious. Some of these plants are reactive. They might look passive, but a sudden touch can trigger chemicals or signals that attract creatures. Watch your step. Lyra marveled at the details. Even in the aftermath of the storm, the world was vibrant and alive. Her sensors detected energy patterns within the plants, subtle vibrations that hinted at communication she could not yet understand. "Your instincts complement technology," she said quietly. "You notice things even I can't detect with my devices." Caleb glanced at her, a small smile forming. "You notice things I can't see too. That's why we work well together. Technology and instinct, humans and others, it's all stronger when combined." Their partnership had grown beyond survival. Each day brought new lessons, new challenges, and new admiration. Lyra found herself increasingly aware of Caleb's calm confidence, his ability to adapt, and his resourcefulness. Every obstacle they overcame together strengthened the bond that had begun during the storm. Suddenly, a low rumble shook the ground. Lyra froze, scanning the area. Caleb, however, did not panic. "Stay behind me," he said calmly, leading her to a higher rock outcrop. From the vantage point, they saw the source, a massive herd of creatures, larger than any they had encountered, moving purposefully through the valley. Their armored hides glinted in the sunlight, and their coordinated movements suggested intelligence beyond instinct. "They're dangerous," Lyra whispered, awe and fear mixed in her voice. "We can't outrun all of them." Caleb studied them, his expression unreadable. "We don't need to outrun them. We need to be smart, use the terrain, and make them respect boundaries. Watch carefully." He led Lyra along a winding path between rocky outcrops and shallow pools, using the natural landscape to funnel the creatures away from them. Lyra followed, her trust in Caleb absolute. Every instruction he gave, every movement he made, was precise and calculated. She realized again how underestimated humans often were. Not only could they survive, but they could think critically, adapt, and lead under extreme pressure. Hours passed before the herd finally moved on, leaving the valley calm once again. Lyra exhaled, a mix of relief and admiration. "I don't know anyone else, human or alien, who could have handled that," she said softly. Caleb shook his head. "It's not about strength. It's about observation, timing, and cooperation. You've seen humans underestimate danger before. We endure because we plan, we adapt, and we never stop learning." Lyra felt a deep respect building within her. She had faced countless worlds and countless dangers, yet Caleb's combination of intelligence, courage, and adaptability left her in awe. Humanity, she realized, was not just resilient, it was extraordinary in its ability to rise to challenges no one else could face. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the valley, they found a narrow cave suitable for shelter. Caleb set to work reinforcing it, while Lyra used her technology to scan for hidden dangers. Together they created a safe space, blending natural features with carefully placed barriers. "You've thought of everything," Lyra said, genuinely impressed. "Even small creatures can be dangerous here, yet you've accounted for them all." Caleb shrugged, a modest gesture. "Experience teaches you to expect the unexpected. You notice more than you realize. Together, we cover each other's blind spots." That night, as they sat by a small fire inside the cave, they shared stories about their lives and experiences. Lyra spoke of alien worlds she had visited, advanced civilizations she had studied, and the wonders of technology beyond human reach. Caleb listened intently, occasionally asking questions that revealed his curiosity and sharp intellect. "And yet," Lyra said, her voice thoughtful, "despite all that knowledge and technology, I've never seen anyone survive like you do. Your skills, your calm, your instincts, they're remarkable." Caleb smiled faintly. "Most humans survive by learning fast, adapting, and never giving up. That's our strength. Technology helps, but courage and persistence are what keep us alive. You've seen that firsthand now." Lyra nodded. She felt a deep sense of admiration and gratitude. The storm had brought her to this planet, but it had also brought her to Caleb, a human who embodied resilience, intelligence, and courage. She realized that humans could not be judged by appearances alone. They were capable of extraordinary feats, often hidden beneath ordinary exteriors. The night passed with quiet vigilance. Creatures occasionally prowled the area, but the combined efforts of Lyra's technology and Caleb's instinct kept them safe. As dawn approached, Lyra felt a sense of anticipation. The planet was still dangerous, still unpredictable, but it had also revealed its beauty, its complexity, and its opportunities for discovery. "We should continue," Caleb said, breaking the morning silence. "The storm cleared paths and exposed areas we wouldn't have found otherwise. There's more to explore, more to learn." Lyra agreed, packing her equipment and preparing for the next leg of their journey. They moved through the valley carefully, observing the recovery of the planet after the Tempest. Small plants had sprouted where the rain had pooled, and tiny creatures cautiously emerged, reclaiming the environment. Life persisted, resilient and adaptive, much like the humans Lyra had come to respect so deeply. As they walked, Caleb shared insights about survival techniques, pointing out signs of danger and showing Lyra how to move efficiently through difficult terrain. She listened, absorbed every detail, and applied it immediately. Together, they moved faster and more safely than either could have alone. By midday, they reached a ridge overlooking a vast plain. The terrain stretched endlessly, dotted with strange rock formations and scattered pools of water reflecting the bright sun. The planet was harsh, but it was alive, and Lyra could feel the pulse of it in every gust of wind, every rustle of vegetation, every distant cry of wildlife. "We're not out of danger yet," Caleb said, scanning the horizon. "But we're learning, adapting, and moving together. That's what matters. The planet tests us, but we can rise to it." Lyra looked at him, a deep respect and admiration in her eyes. "You've taught me more about survival and humanity in a few days than I could have learned in years of research. You are remarkable." Caleb glanced at her, a quiet acknowledgement of the compliment. "We all have the capacity for strength. Some humans endure more than anyone imagines. You've seen it firsthand now, and I think you understand why we are often underestimated." Lyra nodded slowly. She realized that the planet, the storm, and the dangers they had faced had not only tested her skills, but had also revealed the true nature of humans: resilient, intelligent, and capable of extraordinary adaptation. As they descended into the plains, the wind carrying the scent of rain and new growth, Lyra felt a surge of determination. This world was harsh, unpredictable, and full of challenges, but with Caleb by her side, she felt ready to face anything. The Tempest had been the beginning, but the journey ahead promised discovery, growth, and the affirmation of what she had come to believe. Humans were a species to be respected, admired, and never underestimated. Together they walked into the unknown, their partnership strengthened by survival, mutual respect, and an unspoken understanding. The planet was vast, dangerous, and full of wonders, but Lyra felt a deep sense of hope. With Caleb's ingenuity and courage and her own skills and technology, there was nothing they could not face. And in that moment, as sunlight spilled across the plains, Lyra realized something profound. The storm had brought her to this planet, but it had also brought her to the living embodiment of human resilience, strength, and potential. Whatever challenges awaited them, she knew that humanity's true power was in its courage, its adaptability, and its unyielding will to survive. The horizon stretched endlessly before them, filled with unknown dangers, untapped resources, and the promise of adventure. And as Lyra and Caleb moved forward together, she understood that the story of survival was just beginning, one that would showcase the extraordinary capabilities of humans in a world that demanded nothing less than excellence.